Video Griot Productions presents, in conjunction with the Choctaw and Chickasaw Freedmen Association, Chickasaw and Choctaw Freedmen Leaders. Senate Executive Document 82 was published in the Congressional Record serial set. It provided the names of more than 40 men who represented thousands of former slaves in the Chickasaw and Choctaw Nations. In 1868, Choctaw and Chickasaw Freedmen realized time was drawing near for the two nations to adopt them as citizens according to the Reconstruction Treaty of 1866. The third article of that treaty stressed that if the former slaves were not adopted as citizens within a 2-year period, the United States would remove them only if they chose to leave their homes, their families, and in many cases, their identity as Chickasaw and Choctaw Indians. Because the nations had not adopted their formerly enslaved population, the question of the $300,000 that was to be provided for the removal of the freedmen to the least district, if they were not adopted and chose to leave the nations, was the focus of the Senate Executive Document 82. The irony of this removal is when the tribes first came to Indian Territory, they considered it their trail of tears, yet they were comfortable with a similar removal of their former slaves by the United States, if they were willing to remove. James Squire Wolfe was the president of the Council of Freedmen, and apparently the only member of the council that could read or write was Chickasaw citizen Fletcher Frazier, the secretary of the council. When the council met to voice their concerns at Boggy Depot on the 10th of June, 1868, it was clear the issue of citizenship was important, as the council insisted on government action at the earliest day practicable. These are the men that were selected by their peers to address their concerns to the Congress of the United States with the insistence of utilizing the $300,000 for their removal. King Blue is the subject of this episode, and his is a story that requires greater scrutiny for what it teaches us about how certain narratives of freedmen are told. As representatives for their communities, Isaac Alexander and King Blue were chosen to go to Washington and were given a letter of introduction by the U.S. agent S.W. Marston in July of 1877, almost a decade after the Freedmen Council sent their letter to Congress in 1868. Apparently, the wheels of justice truly were slow when it came to the rights of Chickasaw and Choctaw freedmen. More than another decade, King Blue, said to be 72 years of age, is enumerated in the 1890 Chickasaw census, where he is living with his family in Stonewall, Indian Territory. There was a sizable population of Chickasaw and Choctaw freedmen living in and around Stonewall. Using the information in the Dawes land allotment cards, it is estimated to have been at least 65 households of freedmen in 1898-99. In 1894, the San Francisco Chronicle republished a story about an uprising in the Chickasaw Nation, identifying Old King Blue as the leader. However, that is not all of the story, and it demonstrates how the non-citizen status of the freedmen in the Chickasaw Nation endangered their lives and livelihood. What is told about the so-called revolt and the leadership of King Blue is left to interpretation. The headlines and the story that was carried by newspapers across the country speaks to the attitude of those who would detract from the humanity of our ancestors. When we use newspapers seeking information about our ancestors, many times those stories have a deliberate bias to them. We should be very cautious about how much weight given their truthfulness and accuracy. These are some of the surnames of families that were living near Stonewall Indian Territory in 1898, and they were the families that probably asked Blue to represent them in 1868 and 1877. As we honor our ancestors like King Blue, we should be mindful of their full story and character shaped by slavery, injustice, and racial bias. We must diligently research their past and tell their story from their and our perspective, based on the records that we have left by them. As we can see with men like King Blue, he was hardened by enslavement. He was taught by injustice, and he was still that leader his people chose to represent them. There is a lesson in his story for all of us. For additional information about this series, please contact us at videogrio@gmail.com. CCFA is an association of advocacy and training that will develop and identify resources to those who are interested in gaining more knowledge about their Oklahoma-based freedmen ancestors. CCFA will embrace, engage, educate, and empower through workshops, webinars, videos, and publications. If you would like to support this effort, please contact us at www.ccfanow.org.